sponsored by EA. Hey everyone, it's AlluringSimmer here, and if you're new here, then welcome to Planet Allura, and if you've been here before, then welcome back. In today's video, we are going to be making a daycare as requested in a community poll. Before we get into today's video, I just want to share that I'm part of the EA Creator Network, which means you can use my code AlluringSimmer when making purchases on the EA app. You can also visit my website at AlluringSimmer.com/creator to see other eligible EA titles that you can use my code AlluringSimmer for when making purchases on the EA app. Thank you so much to everyone who's already used my code. I appreciate you so much, and to those who continue to use my code, I appreciate the support. If you're planning on purchasing the new kits that recently released, Grange Mudroom and Essential Glam, then consider to use my code AlluringSimmer. So for today's build, I decided to make a daycare, as I did a poll after doing the previous classrooms that I've made of what you guys would like to see next, and daycare was the top voted. The reason why I put off making the daycare was just because I felt like it was too similar to the kindergarten classroom initially, and I didn't want to put up a build back to back that were very similar. However, I will say that now I do think the things that you need for a daycare tend to be very different than the things that I needed for the classroom, to the point where I actually had to go back and add some things at the very end because I forgot to put them in the original build. Another thing to keep in mind is I actually had to rebuild like half of this daycare because my game crashed as soon as I was about to upload the build. I did manage to make it look almost one-to-one to what it originally looked like, and I also added some more things as well and switched a couple things around. So it may not look exactly like how this build looks, but it's pretty accurate, and it still functions the same way. I do also want to mention, by the time you are watching this, it will be available on the gallery. It's called the Dandelion Daycare, and you can find it on my gallery, which is the gallery ID AlluringSimmer, and you'll be able to download it. I did set it as a small business, so you could run it as a small business for your Sims. You could also, transform it into a different lot type. Maybe you want to make it like a generic lot type and just visit it every so often. You could potentially make it a recreation center, but I feel like there would be some things you would have to add to make it function like one. And I'm sure that there are other options as well for how you can use this build, but I thought that the most reasonable one would be a small business, so that way you could actually run the daycare. Now, when deciding like the layout of this build and what it was going to look like, I did look at a few inspiration pics to kind of determine how I wanted to lay it out, and most of them had it where on the interior there was like a toddler kid fence around the entire area where like the kids would play, and then around that perimeter they had like the cribs and the bed. So that's the way that I positioned my build as well, just because I thought it made the most sense. And initially I was going to make an office in the back, which you'll see later on I had like a separate room, but I decided to just use it as like a lounge area, maybe a space for like the parents to wait when, they're coming to pick up their kids from daycare, or it could be a place where like maybe they can do small little interviews, since I didn't make like a proper office before, someone joins the daycare, so that way they wouldn't have to, stand around in the front lobby. As for the exterior as well as the interior, I wanted it to have like a colorful vibe, but I didn't want it to be too overwhelming. That was like my main goal with this build, because something that I tend to do sometimes, especially with a daycare, if you've seen my other daycare that I made like years ago, I think it's called the Gumdrop Daycare or something like that, it was very, very, very colorful. This one I went for like a more minimalistic vibe with pops of color instead. Taking into consideration, like, yes, this is The Sims, but I also wanted to give off the vibe like I don't want the space to be super overstimulating, but I still wanted it to be like colorful and fun for the kids. Now, this is also a build where I did the exterior first. I tend to do that when I'm not really sure how I want to do the outside, because I feel like working on it first allows it to be, I don't know, sort of fresh in my mind as opposed to like an afterthought, if that makes any sense. Since I don't enjoy doing exteriors that much, I feel like getting it out of the way at the beginning is when I'm like most, I guess, creative, and I already have an idea of what I'm going to do for the interior. I don't know if that makes much sense, but but that was just my thought process with doing this. I don't feel like there's a lot outside either, because I feel like with the daycare they tend to spend most of their time inside. I don't know, I didn't go to daycare, I don't have kids, but that is my assumption, that unless like the weather is really nice. I also just feel like it's easier to have them in an enclosed space as opposed to outside where they're more exposed to the elements. I don't know, I feel like they can get into more mess that way. So this is how I ended up doing it. You'll see later on I actually rotate this build because where I have it right now, the front and the back are flipped. So when you see it on the gallery, it is facing the correct way. I made this lot in Magnolia Promenade on the lot called Preeminent Domain. So I believe this world came with Get to Work. However, you can place it on any lot that is this size. There's no requirement for it to be in this world. I do want to say though that with the new like business and hobbies pack, it's made me kind of view the Magnolia Promenade world differently, because I feel like before, I'll be honest, like when Get to Work first came out, I used to use this area a lot for like shopping and stuff like that, and then after a while I kind of stopped using it. But I feel like it's a very good like business district space if you want to use it, and I feel like with business and hobbies, this is a good space to put like small business venues. It's also a good place to put potentially like a thrift shop, like the thrift shop and bubble tea store. You could have one here. I just feel like because there's only like 4 lots, it's definitely good to turn it into sort of like a shopping district, which was its original intention. But I feel like with the small business vibes, you can make it feel more like alive, I guess. So now that we're getting into the interior, this was when I sort of created a layout. The layout had already been made for the build, but this is when I started adding more to it because I wanted to have the bathroom for the kids separate from like the main bathroom. I would say that this one is more so like if the parents come in and need to use the restroom, the workers, or if like, I don't know, they need to use this bathroom because like the other one is currently being used, they have that extra space for that. And then the other bathroom is specifically just for like the toddlers and for them to like change the infants. I didn't include a bathtub or anything like that, so you can't really give the Sims a bath, although I do think that you can use like the sink to clean them up, and then there's obviously the changing table. Maybe before I upload it, if I have the room for it somewhere, I'll throw in a bathtub, but I just didn't really have the space. And I was like, I feel like a changing table should suffice. So that room, as I said before, is like the main bathroom. This front area is like the front lobby space. I don't really know if you need a burglar alarm for a small business venue. I think you might, but I did add one just in case. I also put a thermostat, so that way if you have seasons, you're able to control the temperature. And I also added a fire alarm, so that way, you know, if anything were to happen with that, you're able to put out the fire. I don't think there's anything on this lot that should be able to create a fire. There's no fireplaces, there's no stove, so I don't think that should be an issue, but just in case that happens to occur, there is a fire alarm for that. Now for the bathroom, I kept on going back and forth because I wanted to add like more decor to it, but I also was taking into consideration that it is a bathroom, like they're not going to be spending that much time in there. I did also keep this very like kid oriented still, even though it's, you know, like the bathroom for all guests, including like the parents, because I just wanted to keep that like kid-friendly daycare vibe throughout the entire build. And I really liked using these like pastel colors for the build because I feel like, again, it adds that like pop of color that's not too overwhelming. I also really loved using these decals in the bathroom. I don't normally use them for anything, so it was fun getting the opportunity to include them in my build. And then there's also a lot of swatches of things that I do normally use, but not necessarily those swatches, so it was nice to include those as well. That little butterfly decal, I feel like it's from Love Struck, but I'm not 100% sure on that. It does look really cute, and I feel like it gives like the daycare vibes with like the butterfly and the flowers and like the bright colors, so I thought it'd be cute to throw up in the background as like a cute little display. I used the front office desk and stuff from Get to Work. I really like how it has like, I think it has a printer and then like a little spot for like pencils and stuff, so you don't really have to clutter the desk as much. And then it obviously has a slot for the computer as well. It has like the little phone. So it's definitely giving like receptionist area. And then I added in some clutter. I put a little umbrella rack in the corner. I added a little giraffe statue, and then I also added the magazine and the stack of books. And then after that, I was like, okay, what else can we put in this space? So I put a speaker, I put a dual monitor sort of vibe, in the idea that like maybe if the receptionist or something has to attend like a Zoom meeting or something, they have like the little camera. I was gonna use the one from the Comfy Gamer Kit, but again, I felt like that obviously it's for the gamer kit, so it was more of like a gamer setup. Well, I feel like this one works better in a more professional setting like this. And then I threw in these little chairs for like parents to sit in while they're waiting to pick up their kids, or maybe waiting to drop off their kids. I don't really know how well the daycare functionality works, so I'll be honest, this isn't like play tested to see if like you can actually run a daycare, but you guys wanted to see a daycare, so I made one. It's up to you to make it functional. I do know that there is the ability to create an activity with business and hobbies to make it so that like your Sims will take care of like infants, and then I guess you could set your customers to be like parents who bring in like their kids. So I feel like with that, you do have the opportunity to like take care of kids. I definitely feel like I've seen someone do it before, so I know that it's possible. I just don't quite know how to do it. You could also use this like maybe if you want to do the 100 baby challenge, you could have this be like, you know, a separate venue that your matriarch owns, and maybe they take the babies here, you know, when they're taking care of them. I know that you're supposed to stay on your home lot, but technically I feel like if they own this could be considered part of their home lot. You could add a little attachment to the back, like maybe a little studio apartment sort of vibe, so that way the matriarch has somewhere to stay, and then use this open space for like the toddlers and infants to kind of roam free. And then I don't know, you can upgrade it because there is room to like create a second floor if you wanted to, so you could use that to like create actual bedrooms for like the older kids, you know, once they age up. I don't know, there's a lot of opportunities and ways that you can use this build, so I wanted to also share those ideas in case you're like, I don't know how to make this functional. But yeah, I am really happy with how it turned out. I'm also happy that I took the time to go back in and remake the build, because initially what I was going to do is just upload the video so that way you guys could still see what I did make, and then I was like gonna just tell you that half the build was gone, but I was like, no, I can't do this. You guys wanted a daycare, so I must commit to what I promised, and so it will be available on the gallery as I said before. I didn't use any custom content. I didn't limit myself with packs, and that's just one thing to keep in mind with like any build I do. Unless they state like this is gonna be a limited pack build, I most likely am using all the packs that I have at my disposal, and I do own all of the packs in the kits. Now that I'm looking at this right now, I realize that I put the gate against the dresser, and now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know if I added the dresser in the remake. Oh, I moved it. Okay, good on me. Never mind. So I was like, girl, why did you put that in front of the gate? How are they gonna get in there? And I did use this build as a reference because I had taken screenshots, and obviously I had the video footage to remake the build. So again, it's very one-to-one to what the original looked like. The only thing you may notice is like maybe things won't be in the exact placement that you see them here, and there's also maybe a couple things that I added afterwards as well. So here's where I expanded the daycare because I felt like the room just was not big enough. I needed more space to fit all the things that I needed to fit, including like toys. I wanted to have a little space for like them to sit around on little cushions, because toddlers and well, first of all, infants can't even sit up, but toddlers, they cannot eat at like a regular dining table. They can only eat on like sofas or like armchairs or like the little cushion poofs and stuff like that. So I put cushions all over the floor, so if you want to create like a batch meal and then just like set it down and have them grab their own food, they can do that and go sit on the armchair. I did also, as I said before, add little high chairs at the very end. I know high chairs can get annoying though sometimes, so initially I didn't even put them, but I also realized I didn't have any anywhere for your Sims to eat either. I hadn't put a fridge, I hadn't put like a microwave or anything. There still is no stove, so your Sims can't like cook full meals. You could add like a little stove top if you wanted to on one of the counters, but as of right now, we have a microwave, you have a little mini fridge, and then there's obviously like a sink, there's counter space, and there is also, I'm trying to think, there's also the high chairs, so you can feed them directly in the high chairs. And then with the infants, you can feed them just by like selecting them. You don't need to have a fridge or anything like that. So even though I did add those things just in case, I do also acknowledge the fact that like a lot of the things were still extra, like they're not necessary for you to be able to feed the children. I think for toddlers you do need them, I think for infants you don't. So just keep that in mind. Now this cubby system that I did for like the kindergarten and elementary school classroom, like it's now my favorite thing, and I want to use it in every single build. I want to say shout out to Dream Home Decorator, because that pack has come in clutch for like every single one of these classroom type of builds, and I really hope we get another pack like this. It doesn't have to be like Dream Home Decorator themed, it doesn't have to have that same vibe, or maybe it's just that I want more build items like this. I really love like the modular items that like fit together. You can kind of customize it and create it however you want. One thing that I would love to have is we do have these like boxes and bins that kind of fit nicely in there. I would love to get like the cubes, you know what I'm talking about, like the little storage cubes, like with the IKEA ones that fit in there perfectly. I know with I think Little Simsies kit we got, I think the bottom row of it has cubes in it already, but I want to get those cubes as like a separate object that we can place into these cubes as well. I hope I'm making sense, but like just those little cube storage boxes, I want to get those in different colors and be able to place them really when I want to use them. And something else I would like is again just more modular type of furniture. I like when you can form your own pieces by, you know, putting pieces together. I would love to see this with like tables too, like being able to take two dining tables and form them together to create like a square dining table, or create a longer dining table but have it like all be attached. I know you can do that by just like alt placing, but it would be nice to have them like actually snap to each other if you want that option. Maybe giving the option to turn on and off the snap placement if that's not already a thing, so that way if you don't want it to snap, it doesn't have to, but if you do want it to snap, then it will. That would be great. On that note of things snapping together, I would also love to see more sectionals. I know that we got some at Dream Home Decorator. I think those are the only ones that we have. I would love to see more sectionals. They're so nice, and I would love to see more like modern ones. I'd love to see ones of like different styles. I would love to see one similar to, I cannot think of the name of the kit right now, but the one that has like a very boxy sofa, and I'm pretty sure it was a creator kit, and I cannot think of the name of it off the top of my head, but if you know what I'm talking about, that like boxy sofa that's like modern and it was part of a creator kit, I would love to see something like that as a sectional, like a more boxy sofa. And yeah, that would be really nice. I'd also love to see more like ottomans that like match the sectionals, so you could place like an ottoman in the middle, maybe have it actually be functional as storage. I think it'd be nice, you know, if you have like photographs or like little knickknacks and stuff, to be able to store it like in that center console table. Something else with that is I would love to see functionality with the cabinets. This is just, now I'm just going on and on. But I'd love to see functionality with the cabinets to be able to store stuff in there as well. But only if I place stuff in there. Like I don't want the Sims to be able to autonomously store things in the cabinets. I want to be the one that's able to do it. Because I do like that we can drag appliances to the Sims inventory now. But I would love to be able to just store them in the cabinets instead. So that way my Sims, you know, household inventory or personal inventory isn't like clogged up with a bunch of appliances. Because I like to switch them out. I like to use all of them, but it's sometimes annoying when you don't have the counter space for it. I did mention earlier that we do have counter space. I actually don't even know how much space we have. So worst case scenario, you might just have to delete something off of one of the islands and stuff so that your Sims can use it to cook if they need to. But I think it should be fine. Now this is another cubby area. This was the area that was initially going to be an office, and I decided to use it as like another seating area, as well as like a place where, you know, they could drop off their bags and stuff, because I imagine when you send your kid to daycare, you probably send them with some like snacks, you probably send them with like maybe a change of clothes and like anything that they need for like anything that they need, right? So I have little bags there that would be for like the daycare kids, and then I also have like snacks at the top. I have little toys, just little boxes at the top, kind of using the top space as storage and the bottom space as a place for them to store their books that they, or not their books, but their bags that they bring in. And then here's where I was like, I don't know what else to put here. I'm like, I was so stuck. And so I ended up just adding in a couple more bins. I really love these bins because they're so like nondescript. Like I don't actually know what's in them. I do know that they have like little knickknacks and stuff, but they're very nice to use as like a thing to take up space. And I also think it matches the vibes of like these classrooms and daycare type of builds, because you know you always need to store a bunch of things like toys or just little things that the kids may need. And then I tried to really make this into like a cozy space. You have the little spot with the drawings to like display drawings that the kids from the daycare make. We also added in this little toy box. I said again, this could be a space where like you kind of not necessarily interview, but you talk with the daycare owners about like joining the daycare and, you know, providing the toys there, so that way the kids can play with it while you decide if you want to be a part of this daycare or not. This is the kids' bathroom. I just put some toddler body chairs, another changing table, and then something that I said before is you could easily add a bathtub in there if you really needed one, but I think the changing tables and the sink could potentially suffice. I know sometimes they don't like get clean even if you change them at the changing table, but you know they can take a bath when they get home, worst case scenario. The one other thing that I'd love to have is more like kid friendly artwork. I do feel like we have a lot of like decals and stuff like that, but I'd love to see more like paintings and posters for kids that aren't necessarily just school related stuff. I know we got some with kids room stuff, but I would love to see more like cute little, I don't know, figures, maybe like little references to other packs as well would be nice. And now this is where I added the last minute things that we needed, like the high chairs and the place to cook. So that's pretty much it for this video. I hope that you guys enjoyed. Be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, comment down below what your favorite part is, and I will see you all in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye everyone.